Good morning, everybody. Hello, welcome. Let's get started with those announcements. We have quite a few today. First of all, our question is a two-parter. We're getting a little crazy today at Family Church. I think it's because the ladies are taking over. It's me and Rebecca, so we're like, everything's going to be different today. So we have, what does your name mean? And how do you feel when someone knows your name? If you don't know what your name means, don't worry about it. Just answer one or two or whatever you'd like to do this morning. We'll take those up later. On September the 5th. Guys, it's almost September. How did that happen? We're going to have a back-to-school blessing service. I want to say thank you to our community partners. So we have an AA group that meets here on Wednesday nights. And do you guys notice this morning they cleaned the windows? They look fantastic, so thank you so much, guys. I wanted to say welcome back to Alex. So Pastor Alex is back officially starting, Tuesday? Tuesday. So starting Tuesday, feel free to reach out to him. He is back, and we are so happy to have you back. Yeah. So there's the good news, and then the bad news is that we are losing Pastor Ben. Pastor Ben is looking for something a little bit more full-time in work and or schooling, and thinking about sports ministry, which I think you would be perfect for. So yeah, next week is his official last service, so we'll have an official sending off for you. So Thrive is today, our last Thrive. And that's my announcements, right? I didn't forget anything? No, okay. All right, so we'll start with a prayer, and then we'll have our first family song. Father, thank you for everyone who has come out this morning, who has carved out time in their busy lives to come together as a church family and learn from your word. Lord, I think of those who are too sick at home to come in today, especially Suzanne. Lord, I pray your healing over those who are at home and not feeling well. Amen. All right, our first family song is Because of Your Love. So if you could stand up with me, we'll do the actions together. So I'd like to welcome Rebecca up to the front for the game. For those of you at home, we're going to put the game up on the screen, and you're going to, I don't know, figure it out. So it's kind of an in-person thing today, but try to think of your family members who might fit into those categories. Thanks, Rebecca.
All right. Thank you, Erin. So we are playing Human Bingo today, and Miss Erin is going to hand out your bingo cards. So I'm going to be talking about names today in our story, and we have a name game to play. So you'll each get a bingo card. I want you to try to fill out all the squares. See if you can maybe fill out all the squares. In order to get a bingo, you do need to have a different name in each square. So you can't just put yourself for a whole line or the whole card. And I have, for those of you here right now, I have prizes at the end for everybody because you're all winners. Oh, and you can get up and move around and talk to people to see if they juggle or know a magic trick.
I just want to say, Mr. Andrew at the back can juggle. Mr. Andrew at the back can juggle. And my entire family is left-handed, all my children and husband, if that helps you guys. All right, guys, we are going to start wrapping this up. Sorry to my family at home who's watching. I hope you guys were able to figure out amongst yourselves, the Reed family, who does what on our bingo. So we have prizes at the front. So if you got a line of bingo, come on up and get, if it's okay with your parents, or if you're already an adult, come on up and get a candy bar. Come on up, guys. Come on up, everybody. You do have to show me. Which one did you get? Nice. So you get two. Yeah, you do. If you got 2 lines, I would say 2 candy bars. What'd you get? Oh, you got 2 lines as well. All right, come get a candy bar. If it's okay with your parents, come get a candy bar. Yes. All right, so we had a small group here today, so I'm very impressed that you guys got bingos on that game. Did anybody happen to get a full sheet? Okay, but you used people that aren't here. You didn't? You used people that are here? Oh gosh, okay. You got a full sheet? Okay. I think the one we struggled with most was socks, because not a lot of people wear socks, and then magic trick, but now we know that Caleb knows a really cool magic trick. He'll show you later if you want. All right, so after game comes, memory verse. So we have a new memory verse today. So you guys did a great job with the memory verse last week, so we're going to challenge you to learn a new one this week. Because it's totally new, we have no red covered up, so let's just take a chance to read this together. I will take you as my people, and I will be your God. You will know I am the Lord your God who rescued you from Egypt. And this is kind of like a little bit of a preview because we're still in Genesis this week, but we're looking ahead to Exodus 6:7. So take this, write it on your hearts, and remember it for next week. Let's do a drum roll for our theme. All right, this week, the Lord sees us. Okay. I don't know if it's still cool, but people used to say, I feel seen. Do kids still say that? No, that's over? Okay. Well, you used to say, like, when something makes you feel like someone understands you, you say, I feel seen. So the Lord sees us. Let's see how this jives with our question of the day. Can you guys bring up your questions to the front? Do I have any online answers to the questions? Okay. Okay, so for my online friends, we'll start with you guys. Oh, the Reed family say welcome back, Alex. So Nathan says, my name means gift. That's a great name, meaning. And Hannah says, my name means grace. And they both feel good when someone knows their name. Oh, someone's name means Jehovah is my God. Who's that? That's you. Very cool. Okay, how do you feel when someone knows your name? I feel the best, and I feel seen like the theme. And the name Alex means defender of humankind. And Alex says, no pressure. How do you feel when someone knows your name? I feel good. And Ben's name means son of the right hand. Okay. So this person doesn't know how they feel when someone knows their name. But their name means God remembers. Whose name means God remembers? Over here again. Cool names, guys. Okay. Grace. Grace, what does your name mean, Grace? It means grace. That's awesome. And, Grace feels weirded out when people know her name. Oh, if she doesn't know them. Yes, that freaks me out too, especially sometimes when I'm working at the library and I'm like, oh, it's my name day. Okay. Theo means gift of God, so another name meaning gift, and you feel normal when someone knows your name. That's just how it goes in your life. Everybody knows Theo. Okay, so someone says, I think it's really important to use people's names if you know it. Even reading someone's badge at the grocery store, etc. Everyone likes to hear their name. Good answer. And your name means, so Ronald is from Reginald, which is a derivative of Rex, which means king. Someone's name means pretty in Spanish. And when someone knows your name, you feel happy that they're remembering you. And my final answer is, it makes me feel like I told them my name. Good. Oh, and your name measures how fast cars go while driving in the US. Thank you, Miles. It also means soldier, I think. All right, so that was very cool. I love to hear what people's names mean, and I loved all your answers about how you feel in the various ways when someone knows your name. So let's see who feels known in the Big God story today.
A long time ago, there lived a couple named Abraham and Sarah. God had made a very special promise to them. He told them, I am going to grow a big family from the two of you. A family so big it will become its own nation. And that nation will teach the whole world about me because of the special relationship we will have. In fact, from that family, I will eventually send a Redeemer who is going to save the whole world. And it all starts with the two of you. Even though they were very old, Abraham and Sarah were so excited to be parents. And why not? To know that their family would grow to become such a big part of God's special plan was absolutely incredible. They couldn't wait. But God's timing wasn't the same as theirs. So they waited and waited, but no baby came. And eventually, they couldn't wait anymore. They decided that they would have to do things their own way. So against God's plan, Abraham had a baby with someone who wasn't his wife. One of their servants, a woman named Hagar. Now, even though it was their own idea, Sarah became very jealous very quickly of Hagar and her growing baby. The more jealous she became, the meaner she got. So Hagar ran away. She was all alone. And Hagar thought there was nobody in the whole world who cared about her. But in that moment, she heard a voice. It was the Lord. He said to her, "Don't be afraid and don't worry. Your family will be all right. I have heard your suffering, and I promise you, one day your family will also be larger than what anyone can possibly count." Hagar had never been taught about God, so she gave him a special name that day. "You are the God who sees me," she said. Sometimes, when life gets busy, we can forget about things that we've said, or even people that are important to us or we care about. But not God. There is nobody who is ever forgotten by God. No matter who they are, no matter where they are, and no matter what they have done or are doing. nobody. The Lord sees us.
So we have a late-breaking answer from someone who didn't write it down. Andrew would like everyone to know that his name means manly. All right, so the children are going to come out with me and Sierra this morning. We are going to be exploring with some magnifying glasses just for a short time. Rebecca's going to come up and talk to the folks who are still in here, and the youth are going to go out with Ben for Thrive. So we'll all go in our different directions now. Oh, and there's some coffee in the back if you want to grab some while we're going to our different places.
All right, so good morning. I'm going to talk a little bit about names today and how that relates to our Bible story. So names are important. They tell us something about a person. And the name that someone uses for us tells us about our relationship. When my husband and I got married, I didn't take his last name. I am Vendetti, and he is Chudarisky. I didn't take his last name because I didn't want my identity to be based on his. I wanted to be my own individual, and I wanted my name to reflect that. There are very good reasons for taking your husband's last name when getting married, not least among them wanting to be a cohesive family unit and wanting to have your name reflect that. But there are also good reasons for not changing your name. I felt that it was unfair that my identity should so fundamentally change when getting married, and his did not. He was, is, and always would be Mr. Jacob Chudarisky. But I, upon getting married, would cease to be Miss Rebecca Vendetti and would instead become something of a version of my husband, Mrs. Rebecca Chudarisky, or worse still, Mrs. Jacob Chudarisky. Why does my identity change and his doesn't? Why, upon getting married, do I cease to be me and become someone else? Especially when my husband gets to always remain who he is. That was my reasoning. And let me tell you, when we occasionally get mail addressed to Mr. and Mrs. Jacob Chudarisky, it drives me all kinds of crazy. But the point of this story is not to advocate for changing your name or not. The point is to show that names matter. There are plenty of other examples. I got my PhD a few years back, and I went from being Ms. Rebecca Vendetti to Dr. Rebecca Vendetti. Not the kind of doctor that's useful in medical emergencies, mind you. At work, I'm a chaplain at a girls' school. All the students call me Dr. Vendetti, and that says something about my identity and about their relationship to me. When I had my twins, I went from being just Rebecca to being mom. That also said something fundamental about my identity. My dad went from being dad to being papa, and there are more. There are nicknames. There are names that our close friends and family might call us that others don't. There are formal names and informal names. Names matter. We see that in our Bible story today, too. Today, I want to focus on the importance of names in the story of Hagar and Ishmael. There are a few places where names come up, and each of them tells us something important about Hagar's relationship with God and, by extension, our relationship with God. So before I say more about names in our Bible story today, I want to read you part of the passage from Genesis 16. So this happens after Hagar gets pregnant. And it says, when Hagar knew she was pregnant, she began to look down on the woman who owned her. Then Sarah said to Abraham, "It's your fault that I'm suffering like this. I put my slave in your arms. Now that she knows she's pregnant, she looks down on me. May the Lord judge between you and me. May he decide which of us is right." "Your slave belongs to you," Abraham said. "Do with her what you think is best." Then Sarah treated Hagar badly, so Hagar ran away. The angel of the Lord found Hagar near a spring of water in the desert. The spring was beside the road to Shur. The angel said, "Hagar, slave of Sarah, where have you come from? Where are you going?" "I'm running away from my owner Sarah," she answered. The angel of the Lord told her, "Go back to the woman who owns you. Obey her." The angel continued, "I will give you and your family many children. There will be more of them than anyone can count." The angel of the Lord also said to her, "You are now pregnant and will have a son. You will name him Ishmael, because the Lord has heard about your suffering. He will be like a wild donkey. He will use his power against everyone, and everyone will be against him. He will not get along with any of his family." She gave a name to the Lord who spoke to her. She called him, "You are the God who sees me." That's because she said, "I have now seen the one who sees me." So, first, let's talk about Hagar's name. Up until this point in the story, Abraham and Sarah simply refer to Hagar as your slave or my slave. They do not use her name. When God encounters Hagar, however, and in our story it says the angel of the Lord, but then Hagar gives a name to God as though God is speaking directly to her, so that's sort of what I'm going to assume, that God is speaking to her through this angel. And the first word out of his mouth is her name, Hagar. This tells us a little bit about the value that she has in the eyes of others. To Abraham and Sarah, she is just a slave. But to God, she is important and she is known for who she is, not just for her use to other people. God sees Hagar's value as an individual. Hagar probably felt fairly invisible up to this point in the story. She is being used by Sarah and Abraham to achieve their purposes, to have descendants in Abraham's family line. Further, the story tells us that when Hagar learns she is pregnant, she begins to despise Sarah. It's understandable, is it not, to hate the person who has used you for your body, who sees you as a means to an end. Hagar has no control over her life or even over her body. And then Sarah begins to despise Hagar and mistreat her, so Hagar flees. She runs into the desert to escape from Sarah, and there she finds God. And God's first words to Hagar are, "Hagar, slave of Sarah, where have you come from, and where are you going?" God expresses concern for Hagar. Where have you come from could mean, what has happened? Where have you been? How have you come to be in this place, in this state? I might ask something similar of my children if they show up dirty or wet or covered in icing and pizza sauce. Where have you come from? What has happened? And God expresses concern for Hagar's future too. He asks, "Where are you going?" In other words, what are you going to do next? Of course, God knows the answer to these questions, but in his asking, he is giving Hagar a voice. He is asking her to tell her side of the story. And Hagar does. She tells God of her mistreatment. "I'm running away from my mistress Sarah," she answers. Perhaps this is a shortened version of what she actually said. Perhaps she cried out in anguish, "God, Sarah is mistreating me. She is using me and hurting me. She snaps at me whenever I make a peep. I feel so hurt and ignored and afraid. Don't you see this? Why are you letting this happen to me?" Or perhaps she says next to nothing, the words getting stuck before she can even give voice to them. Perhaps all she can manage is a timid, "I'm running away." But whatever Hagar does or doesn't say out loud, God hears her and sees her. At the end of the encounter, Hagar calls God El Roi. That's the Hebrew for the God who sees me. Hagar feels that God sees her, truly sees her in all her suffering and all her anguish. But he also sees her value. He knows her name. and she is given the power of naming God. The name that she uses describes her relationship with God, a God who knows her and who values her, a God who is there even through suffering. This is an important point in the story too. God doesn't promise a quick fix to Hagar's problems. Did you notice that? He doesn't take away Hagar's suffering. In fact, he tells her to return to Sarah. I was talking about this story to my kids the other day and said, can you imagine if I did the same, if you came and you said your brother was yelling at you or hitting you, and instead of going and telling him to be kind and keep his hands to himself, I said, go back. That's what God does to Hagar. So this might be an especially challenging part of the scripture for us today. God doesn't take away Hagar's suffering. We, like Hagar, are not promised an easy life. Even if God sees us, truly sees us, that doesn't mean that we won't suffer. It also doesn't mean that God doesn't care. So God promises Hagar a son. And while this doesn't fix her problems of invisibility and abuse, it does give her something of a safety net. Sons were desired because ancient Israelite society was patrilocal, which means that the daughter moved to the house of her husband when she got married. So although girls and women were valuable contributors to the labor of the household, a family without sons would be bereft of children to care for the parents in their old age. Without sons, Hagar would have no one to take care of her when she was old. So perhaps God knows what is coming. He knows that Hagar and Ishmael will be cast out by Abraham and Sarah. This happens in Genesis 21. And in providing Hagar a son, he is providing her with what she will need for the journey. God tells Hagar to call this son Ishmael. So this is another place where names are important. Ishmael in Hebrew means God hears, because God has heard her misery. God sees Hagar and God hears Hagar. And yet she is told to return to the life that she was running away from. Why is this? Why does God seem to ignore the fact of Hagar's suffering? One reason, I think, that we can glean from the story is that God sees the bigger picture. God promises Hagar a son and many descendants. This promise draws Hagar's attention to a bigger picture than her current situation. But the picture is even bigger than Hagar's old age and her descendants. Hagar's story is situated in a bigger story, in the biggest story of all, in fact, the story of God's redemption and reconciliation of humanity to himself. God sees the bigger picture outside of the constraints of time. To answer God's question, where have you come from and where are you going, we can look at the small scale. For Hagar, the answer would be that she came from the house of Abraham and Sarah, and she was going, she hoped, to someplace far away from there. But God knows that this is not the whole story. We can zoom out and say that Hagar came from Egypt, where she was purchased as a slave, and that she is going towards an old age that includes a son who would take care of her and many descendants. We can zoom out even further and say that Hagar comes from the stock of Adam and Eve, from a broken humanity living in a broken world, and that she is going towards a future where that brokenness is healed. That future may not be here and now, but God knows what is coming. He knew even then, even with Abraham and Sarah, even with Hagar and Ishmael, that he himself would take on humanity and would transform it. He knew that he would come in the form of a servant and submit even to death on a cross in order to defeat death itself and to transform human nature, to reconcile the human with the divine. He also knew that in the end, all things would be made new, all brokenness would be healed, and all things would be made right. And it is when we keep this biggest picture as a promise in our minds and in our hearts that we can return to situations like Hagar, where we want to cry out to God, maybe to scream in anguish, to yell to the heavens, "Don't you see what I'm going through, God?" We can endure suffering because we know that all things will be mended in the end. So what does this have to do with names? The name that Hagar gives to God is El Roi, God sees me. Hagar recognizes that God sees her for who she really is, that he values her as an individual, and that he sees her suffering and hears of her misery. That he sees where she has come from, and that he sees, even when she does not, where she is going. God knows Hagar by name, and Hagar, in turn, knows God as the God who sees me. So before the kids return, And I'm going to have you do an interactive reflection activity. So instead of the questions that we normally do, I'm actually going to have you get up, walk around, and we will have it on the screen for the people watching at home. But before we do that, let's close in prayer together. Do we have the slide? Our Father in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, as we forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Right. So there are actually dozens of different names of God in the Bible if you pour through it. I think we have about 10 or 12 of them on the floor in the church, and we have some, or we'll have some up on the screen. So for those of you at home, I'd invite you just to look at the different names of God and see sort of what speaks to you. See if you identify with any of them, if any of them are challenging. For those of you here, I want you to actually get up and wander around the room. There are different names here, and I have the Bible verses. So you can pause at one if it really speaks to you or if it challenges you. You can look up the Bible verse. If you want to just sort of stand at one of them, if you're like, this one really speaks to me. If anyone else comes, you can have a conversation about them. I also have some little cards with the Bible verses that you can paw through on the front table. So I'll let you do that for about 5 minutes or so.
Okay, did everyone get a chance to look at all the names? Rebecca also printed out some really beautiful cards at the front with different names and the passage right on them. So if you want to take a look at those after the service, she said we're welcome to take any home that really resonate with us. So that's at the front table here. But for right now, we are going to be singing our last song. It's a family song, so stand on up with me, and we are going to sing Today.
Follow As for me and my house, we will spend our lives on you. Today I choose to follow you. Today I choose to give my yes to you. Today I choose to hear your voice and live. Today I choose to follow you. As for me and my house, we will serve you. As for me and my house, we will spend our lives on you. Wonderful Counselor, everlasting Father, eternal King, Lord of hosts, willingly we follow. Today I choose to follow you. Today I choose to give my yes to you. Today I choose to hear your voice and live. Today I choose to follow you. As for me and my house, we will serve you. As for me and my house, we will spend our lives on you. As for me and my house, we will serve you. As for me and my house, we will spend our lives on you.
It is time for the family blessing. So hold on to someone you brought with you. Put a hand on each other. Alex. There you go. Get in there. Everybody has someone. Okay. So we're going to speak to each other. Repeat after me. May you know that you are loved by God and by your family. May you know that the Lord loves you and sees you today and always. All right, we will see you back next week. Pastor Alex will be preaching, and have a blessed week.